On this episode of ITG, we get the word, we get the stories of Owen Schmidt's experience with the McAfee show, that crazy scene Friday in Morgantown. We've also got to look ahead to game number 2 as Albany rolls into town this weekend. All that and more on this edition of ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With Wes, Owen, and Jed.
Single. I've got the best teammates in the business here, all right?
No way!
Oh, they both played the game. They both know the game. Owen is the runaway beer truck known for having some fun.
Owen Schmidt like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Jed is the signal caller who is the X's and O's and the brainiac.
First of all, Jed's research is pretty impressive.
So we've combined those two skill sets.
Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
You are in the gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 185 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I'm Wes Euler, as always, with the best teammates in the business. We got the beer truck, Big O, Owen Schmidt, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. And as always, this episode of ITG brought to you in part by our friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads to bet on during the games, it's all at Bet Online. You think you know your stuff? You got to get in on their $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. And when the games are over, you can head to their online casino, get in on games of blackjack, poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. So head to the website today to get in on the action. It's all at Bet Online. The game starts here. And where we start today, obviously, before we get into our Albany preview and look ahead to this Saturday evening's kickoff for the Mountaineers, we got the beer truck. We got Big O in the building. And, you know, Big O, of course, Mr. TV star, Friday afternoon, ESPN, McAfee show. And I see you already. Well done. You got your brand new Coal Rush helmet displayed there. Look at you, baby.
Yeah, that was quite a piece for them to give us one of these.
A nice gift.
Mine's already gotten some damage done to it.
Did you wear it out? Did you wear it out drinking?
Wear it to practice at Greenbrier West, so I got some PPE, and I the day after that, I did a small little. I was in the Oak Leaf Festival in Oak Hill there, and I had it on top of my car, and I went to leave. And I pulled out of the gas station, and there goes the helmet, like rolling like 20 yards down the highway. It's got a couple bad ones.
That's the most beer truck story I think you've ever told here.
Yeah, completely sober too, which made me mad. So it happens both ways.
Oh,
so you've got battle scars from pavement on your Coal Rush helmet already. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, already. Stickers tore up a little bit. I said, well, it's slightly used.
It's got some loving. That's right. It's seen a few snaps. It's seen a few snaps now, right? Some action.
You can't have nice things. Come on.
Can't have nice things.
Listen, that's my life. I cannot have nice things.
Well, Big O, you at least had a lot of fun Friday afternoon. I mean, just walk us through it, man. What it was like getting there, the scene, being part of all that, seeing all your old boys. Just sum up that experience, that crazy Friday afternoon you had for us.
Yeah, so well, I'll draw it back a little bit, and I'll start with how I got there. Got my '06 beater Kia, had to change the wheel bearings on that bad boy, so that kind of dirtied the old hands up, right? So got the wheel bearings fixed, oil changed her up, headed up to Morgantown. Never rode so smooth by I'm telling you, like. I think I fixed it, okay? It's been blowing wheel bearings. I think I got it down. Bought me a good torque wrench, nailed her down at about 180 foot-pounds per torque, so she's rolling like a meatball now. But got up to Morgantown actually Thursday night, went to the GOAT, met Dave Talman there, Morgantown head ball coach for the high school.
Yep.
And had a couple brewskis. Didn't it was go for one. Hey, just come down, we'll buy you one. And then I got there and in
Biggest
Morgantown fashion,
biggest
the
lie we
people,
ever tell in human history. Just
yeah,
come have one.
yeah. So went and had one, had a few, had many. Um, rolled out, checked out a couple places, a couple other spots. I was like on the mature end of Morgantown. So I was on the went to the Goat, went to Purple Cow, went to Novachinks, Boathouse, Tropics for one.
Nice.
Um, and
See the path you took there. You're winding your way out toward Cheat Lake, but
yeah,
tell
yeah.
people
And
what the goat
then I
is,
made
though. And
my
some people don't know. The goat is brand new. It's the
yep.
Country Roads Trust Pub right there in the Suncrest Town Center. We were going to try and swing by for a burger on the fly Friday night, and it was just packed. So we just kept on trucking.
That's awesome.
It's a madhouse, but looked like they've done a nice job of that place.
Oh, dude, it's spectacular. I mean, great spot. First NIL bar of its kind, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. Spoke briefly with the guy who's running the place. He said, I asked him how it works. I don't want to put the business side of it out there a little bit, but I was kind of astonished when he kind of, rattled off a few numbers because I just said, "Oh my gosh, how are you going to make this happen?" But
Nope, did
the
freeze up.
giving back and stuff, he gets that in return. So I'm hoping that, they do great success because it's really a great place.
Great
I'm
spot.
excited. Yeah, I'm excited to get there. One of these
We'll
home
def
football games.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to check it out. Grab ourselves a brew. All I drank there was Trust beer. So,
Of course,
hey, I'm giving back, baby.
did your part. Did your part.
I'm giving back. Yeah. So,
It's a happening
and
part of
then,
town. It's right there by the Gucci Kroger. I mean, there's a
yep,
ton of
yep.
stuff in the town center. It's a great spot, great
Yeah,
location, I
Bartini's
should say.
down there and everything. It's
Yep,
a real nice
yep.
joint. Definitely check it out when you're in Morgantown for sure. And then so kind of did the OG tour of Morgantown, and then stayed at a good buddy house, Mike Vira, who I'd been banking with since like I was in Morgantown. He's got a killer like WVU man cave. So usually I hibernate there on
Yep.
those nights. So that's why I made my way out that way. But McAfee in the morning, we had allegedly spoke of meeting up that night, but he said, "Dude, I couldn't risk it in Morgantown a day before." He's like, I knew it was gonna be bad,
Little
and
self control from McAfee.
yeah, he could see me kind of sweating when I walked in the morning, so he knew that I had put in some good work. So we sat there just kind of BS'd in his, quote unquote war room. They were doing game days. So I was it was neat kind of hearing them just kind of jot over game plan. And
Was it a production meeting? Is that what they were doing on?
yeah, yeah, it was awesome. So it was cool to kind of just listen in on that. And then, you know, dude, people were filling in. And then all of a sudden it's like, he goes down, he lets Pat and I know like when we're coming down, we did it. We waited for us, not we just didn't go up there all at once. And then he he brought us up there, dude, and it was absolutely pandemonium. I mean, it was people, a sea of gold. The crowd was absolutely insane. I mean, so much energy. So much energy. It was really fun to be there. It was like a pep rally you've never been to before. Um,
So,
and
Owen,
then
where'd
yeah.
you stay, and how'd you get down to the stage? Who
Oh
took you
yeah.
down there?
So yeah, I left out some good details. So Brad Palmer, right, old teammate of mine, who's now a enforcer of the law, came and
Police
picked me
officer.
up. Yep, came and picked me up. Was packing heat, loved it. Had a nice shotty and a I believe a 223 sitting there right by his deal, plus all his mace and his extra clips and his handgun and stuff. It was like, golly, still jacked. He's still big old boy. He came and got me. We drove right downtown. He only had to use the lights a couple times. Well, then we went and picked Pat up. So like he went and picked me up from Cheat Lake. Then we stopped at the airport, picked Pat and Cooley up, his brother, and then we rolled downtown. And
So Pat had just landed, Owen.
Pat had just landed.
Okay.
Pat had just landed. And I want to say
Pat White had just
that,
landed.
yeah, Pat
And
White.
Coley.
That was roughly around. Well, and McAfee too. Like he got in town, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, maybe something around there.
Okay.
And then we went over there about, I want to say, I think it was like about 9:30, 10 o'clock or something like that. Um, Went up to I think we were in the life science building.
Yeah.
They had a room for us. It was cool. Like I said, he was already in his pre-production meeting, got to meet the guys of the show and, Tone Diggs, Boston and Ty and the crew. His dad was there, which was awesome. I got to see his dad. I was
Nice.
like, man, Pat, you got your dad working as a roadie. Loving it. It was just really cool to see kind of what they're doing. Funny story though, I had brought him a key player belt, and he had this awesome like WWE West Virginia belt, the one I walked out on stage with. Well, Pat White and we were reminiscing about the Louisville game when we brought the belts out and then we got spanked.
Oh, no, 06.
You know, yeah, and they beat us up, and I was like, that's the last time I'll ever brag again about a game or anything like that. You know what I mean? I was
Was
like,
that
such,
the blackout game in Louisville, right?
yeah, it was such
Steve got
bad
hurt,
karma.
right?
I was like, I learned my lesson. I was like, I'm never doing that again. So
That's the game, right, Jed? That's the game where Steve had the fumbleitis in that game. Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah, Owen
yep,
shaking his
And he
head.
got
Yeah.
hurt. And Owen, I believe that's also the Kozlowski game where McAfee actually ended up winning the job. I think that was that night.
yep,
Yeah.
same deal. Well, we kind of talk, it was funny because remember that conversation. Pat starts talking about his new rig, like his new trailer rig they got with the whole setup. And he's like bragging up the audio crew like the whole time. He's like, dude, these audio guys are like, dude, they're the best, man. Like
And then there's
they
issues right off
literally
the bat.
right off the bat, he's like, I mean, I don't have to worry about nothing anymore. It's just like the show just goes so smooth, it's cakewalk. I'm so tired of dealing with these other guys that we were dealing with, like when we were getting all these like B teams to work our audio. So, all right, well, it's time for us to go down there. And Pat's got the crowd rocking, and we're walking to the stage, right? Police escort down there, and he pulls the intro, and I walk up there or whatever, and literally 5 seconds into the show, the audio just blows out, dude. And I'm laughing so hard inside because I'm like, this is exactly what just happened upstairs. And I'm getting a chuckle myself. And Pat being such a great, like, just off the cuff guy, he starts getting the crowd into it, and he kind of knows like, hey, we gotta make a decision here. We gotta like, so he's entertaining the crowd and stuff, and kind of at least keeping the show rolling, so nobody really thinks, obviously live TV, it's like, you know,
What do we do?
Yeah.
you can see us talking, but there's nothing coming out. What had actually happened was they had both of their generators like back to back. So they were the intakes were sucking in the carbon monoxide, which was blowing um like
Like a
the
fuse or something.
sensor or
Yeah.
whatever. And so like you could hear like on the TV copy too, and obviously you could hear in the headphones like the surge of power. It was like boo, there's a super high. And Wes, you would know, like dealing with a bunch of audio equipment, like power is
Mm-hmm.
so crucial. Like you have to have
Mm-hmm.
good, clean power.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great, but it was awesome to see him like, just do his thing and not freak out, not like flip shit and like whatever. He just kind of rolled with the punches. They got the thing fixed. and it was all good. And then we rolled into the show, and you know, like I said, just great entertainer, very energetic. Um, sets you up with layups all day long. Like, you can just kind of really relax and have fun. Um, they did get me on the Guardian caps. They got me on the Guardian caps up in the room too, and we talked about it. And I took the bait, hook, line, and sinker again. I knew I was going to anyways. But it was good stuff. Travis, um, the Travis comment that happened upstairs too as well. He had texted me. I was like, man, you had to beat Rich up, and he's like, yeah, f that, dude. And I'm like, it was all good stuff. But it was great to ask Coach Saban really what his thoughts were on like walk-ons now with NIL and stuff like that,
Yeah, it was a
because
great question.
I thought he gave a great answer. Really the future of college football as it pertains to the walk-on aspect of it. But man, a lot of fun. I've after the game happened, and then just a couple of days after, I almost well, let me step back for here for a second. Dude donates, two
Yeah.
kids have been in the stand since 3 a.m. He donates 10 grand to each of them kids. Deuce it's a long shot to pay the kid's scholarship. Then
Unbelievable.
Pat donates $1 million to the NIL, to the trust for, basically, saying it was from our years, but it's from Pat McAfee. I mean, but what a great guy, great ambassador of WVU. Really wants obviously the best for WVU. You can tell he does get a lot of heat just because he's a WVU guy. I don't care if you went to the school, if you go to the school, you're always going to be looking out for your alma mater. That's just how it
No
goes.
doubt. No doubt.
I hope West Virginia can really um, adapt a very great relationship with him, because I feel he is a great, you know, key ambassador of helping us, as much as they can. But they got to figure that out. Pat's doing his thing. He's going to be doing his thing. Hopefully, WVU can work their relationship out to where both of those guys can use their star power to elevate the squad in any way. But hey, he gave us a great shout out on the show. Heck, he even gave the boys of Greenbrier West a shout out.
Yep.
And you know, I wore my cutoff sleeve T-shirt, and it was suns out, guns out, and I had a blast, man. It was great to just see them and chat up, and then getting a chat with Pac-Man after the show a little bit too as well. He smelled lovely. I could smell him. He smelled absolutely
He
like,
smelled real floral.
buddy, he smelled like the most beautiful buds I've ever smelled in my life. You know what I mean?
He smelled earthy.
Yeah,
Earthy.
very
Yeah,
earthy.
earthy. Yeah.
It's very
So,
robust, woody, piney. Just it encapsulated the nostrils as soon as he entered the
Pungent.
stage.
Pungent.
Very pungent, stings the nostrils.
I went handed him some patchouli, but
Yeah, no, stuff.
Wes is a deadhead. He's all about the patchouli, right? But
I might know a
you
thing or
mentioned
two.
Coach Saban. You
Yeah.
mentioned Coach Saban. How funny is it that you were right there, at least virtually, doing that interview with Coach Saban within hours of one of the funniest videos I've ever seen in my life? That clip during a TV timeout of Pat vibing
Oh,
and Coach Saban sitting next to two human beings couldn't be more different, right?
yeah,
That will People will be looking at that video clip for the next 30 years. But Owen, you just got the sense that Saturday notwithstanding, what happened in Morgantown on Friday is worth 100 wins. I mean, you
yeah,
can't put a price on the value of the brand equity that West Virginia University got with how Pat McAfee played that from top to bottom, soup to nuts, alpha to omega. I mean, it almost felt ordained. Like, even right down to the shot by Deuce, we could do nothing wrong for
yeah,
all the things that frowned on us, self-induced and otherwise, on Saturday. Mother Nature not cooperating in the greatest environment you ever see at Mountaineer Field. It seemed just the opposite on Friday. Deuce hitting that shot, and then Pat so impromptu saying, "Hey, and you get $2,000, and you get $2,000." He was doing his Oprah up there, right? But it was, I mean, everybody across the country was watching that, and West Virginia was cool. WVU was cool. WVU was hip. I mean, college age kids eat what
Oh, they love
McAfee
it.
puts out with a big spoon. They love him. College McAfee is so popular with that demographic. It really
Yeah.
is. And I agree with you. I think whatever path he takes moving forward, it's incumbent upon the university to forge an incredible relationship. I think behind the scenes they kind of have, but he could be a critical piece of what we're trying to do in this new era where we're always going to be shorthanded from a resource standpoint, and other schools are always going to be outspending us. A guy like McAfee, it's just so difficult to put a price on the value of what he brings. There is only one Pat McAfee. And for him to come back to town on the eve of the season opener, there's only one Owen Schmidt. There's only one Pat White. So what McAfee did in coming back to Morgantown was cool for the whole country, and what he did in bringing Gil Pat back was cool for the state of West Virginia and for the program. I just thought it was a really cool thing all around.
No,
it
cool
thing.
And I don't, as far as whatever goes on, the little conversation, however Pat got there, whether it was to, somewhat just kind of write a misunderstanding with, kind of what happened with the ticket situation and former players or whatnot. Pat went above and beyond, obviously, and completely squash all of that with bringing us there and kind of letting people know like what we're about. But it was what was great was it felt like old energy. It felt like the old energy of when I played. I'm telling you, that place was absolutely rocking. I did a couple, let's go chants, and the crowd responding with Mountaineers. I was getting goosebumps just like getting the feedback from the crowd. And like you said, I mean, it felt like, dude, I mean, I don't know what bigger pep rally you could get to get people fired up.
They gave McAfee essentially his own game day on campus on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
I mean, that's
a good way to put that.
It was McAfee game day. Like, it was unbelievable.
Say what you want about the Penn State game, but I will forever feel like we left that opening weekend with a 1-1 record because Friday was so massive. It was so massive. Again, it's worth 100 victories. You could win 100 games and not make an impact like he made with that key demographic on Friday. I mean, it was massive. Now let's follow it up with a successful season and build some things that we didn't do on Saturday. But what happened on Friday is, if you want to disconnect that from Saturday, it was massive. It did feel like we were 1-0 at the end of Friday. And as a result, I say we're 1-1 right now. I mean, that was unlike anything I've ever seen. That's a good way to put it, Wes. It was like a very personalized, one-off West Virginia unique game day. I've never seen another school have something like that, blue blood or otherwise. I don't know of an SEC school having something like that.
On game day, they talk a lot about other games and they talk a lot about the opponents and all this. I mean, it was WVU, it was Morgantown, 95% of the content.
Yeah, much of it's 100%. Because there's only one Pat, right? There's only one McAfee. So that was what drove this. I mean, he was the central part of this, and he was going to make it all or 90% about West Virginia. And you just don't have a lot of other media personalities that are willing or open to doing that type of thing for their alma mater. And it felt special.
Yeah, and just, like you said too, he just has such a cult following right now with the college demographic. And look, people watch sports, man, and he is a very organic change up from the norm of what is going on in the sports world. So, you might see a McAfee game day show coming. Who knows? I mean, who knows what will flower out of this whole
Yeah.
event? I mean, for him, it was kind of a tester. They just got a couple of things here and there. So I thought it went great. It wouldn't matter. I haven't had that many text messages on my phone and my social media since playing days about just how much they love the show. And hey, you didn't look like an idiot, dude. You asked some good questions. He's like, did they write those questions down for you? And a lot of them were really impromptu. I had a couple things jotted down. Jed gave me a great little like buffer media guide. I didn't obviously use much of it because I didn't really we just kind of
You didn't
randomly
get into the
went on.
weeds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, kept it very basic, but just kept it fun, kept it light. And it was a good time. He had, great guests. And like I said, Pat does a great job at obviously I understand in his world he has to be critical of what he does, but it's your alma mater regardless through and through. I mean, he came out and the crowd came out in massive support.
No, they did.
I'll
And it
say this
was,
though, and at one point I thought you were like the assistant general manager to John Lynch for the 49ers. I mean, you were going all deep in on the 49ers. I was like, wow, listen to this guy.
Well, look, I John Lynch is great, dude. I love him. I loved his playing
Absolutely,
career.
he is.
Um, you know, I love the Buccaneers when I was growing up too. Obviously, they
all-star,
played the Packers
baby.
a lot in division, playoff games. Obviously, I love the Buccaneers too because Mike Allstott was like my favorite player ever growing up. So, like, what I mean? I got, and they had a bunch of great players on that team. But I think what John's done there, and I was kind of elaborating a little bit on it. I was like, look, they've gotten the players, they've had the
Mhm.
players. I don't know what else they really need to do, but just to win it, they got to finish. And they just haven't been able to get over that hump, which is unfortunate, you know what I mean? And going back to when I was growing up, Packers and 49ers used to play divisional championship game like every year. And the Pack was good back then too. So, I my heart goes out to them, but go Pack go. And maybe the Niners will pull it off this year. Who knows? They have spent a enormous amount of money. So um that also goes to show you can't always buy a championship. So there's a special chemistry factor that's put in there as well. Now a lot of those guys have been there together now, so that chemistry should be there. But Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Kelsey and the whole gang over there, they just have something super special in Kansas City. It doesn't matter if they're down or players are hurt. They just find a way. And like any ball coach or any quote from football, hey, look, the good teams find a way. I mean, as cliche as that sounds, that's just really what it comes down to.
You had me at Colt McKivitz.
It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough for the Niners, man. It's like being Phil Mickelson, but you got Tiger Woods that you're chasing
I know.
down. I mean,
I know.
Phil Mickelson, pretty damn good, but he's no Tiger Woods. I mean,
I know, man.
Holmes and Andy Reid and those
Yeah.
boys. I mean, good Lord. Yeah. So no, Big O, it was awesome. We enjoyed watching you. I got we got some nice bump on some of our ITG stuff here. So I'm glad we had an opportunity to share some of that there. One last thing before we go to breako, and you'll get a kick out of this. Monday, I was talking to one of our neighbors, Craig. Okay, lives a couple doors down the street from me, and his son just graduated from WVU and was down there for the weekend. And so Craig's like, "Yeah, let me show you these pictures my son was sending me." He's like, "Look, here's him and Pat, and here's him and Pac-Man Jones, and here's him." They're all selfies, And he goes, "And here's him with some guy, the runaway beer truck." And it's you like in a selfie, like right by the stage with my neighbor's son. And so I was like, that's Big O. That's my guy right there. I know him well. We do a podcast together. So it was funny, man. I mean, you were making waves everywhere, certainly, and really cool that you got to be a part of that. I'm sure that's a fun memory that you'll hold on to for a long time.
Oh, dude, great memory and a great point there too, Wes. Like Pat we all did. We all stayed and signed autographs after the show, but like literally, like, dude, he signed it, which was great to see because sometimes, look, that can get, you know, he just did like, and I felt like the show was like 4 hours long. Like it felt like it was that long. It wasn't, but you know, I mean, and then he literally signed everybody's autograph, took pictures, chugged beers. Like he just really put a great exclamation point on.
That's awesome.
Coming there and really selling the deal. And like I said, it felt like I just felt like, dude, we're gonna, this game is we've already won. We've already got, and unfortunately, hey, we didn't play well. That's the unfortunate part. I hope they've made the adjustments. We got Albany this week, whatever. So let's go get it done.
That's a good transition there, Big O, because yes,
Wes,
we
the
will.
last thing I'll say.
Yep.
I'm hoping this turns into an annual event. Pick one big home game, whatever fits Pat's schedule. This was awesome beyond belief. I would love nothing more than to see this at least once a year in Morgantown, whatever fits Pat's schedule.
Big O, if you want to pass along the word to Pat, he can go ahead and pencil it in for Friday, September 12th next year, which will be the day before the Mountaineers host the Pitt Panthers in the backyard brawl. We got to get to a break here, but on the other side, we will talk about Albany. We will talk about this 6 o'clock night game for the Mountaineers at home this weekend as they look to get right and get that first victory, second victory if we're counting the McAfee show of this 2024 season. We'll get into all that on the other side when we return. You are in the gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
There are better-known tractors in the world than Coyote. Ones with bigger names, longer histories, more popular hats, cute toy lines. But there's not a single tractor ever been built that's better equipped to do the dirty work. So we'll just focus on what really matters. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Get 0% financing for up to 84 months with approved credit on select Coyote tractors in stock now at Johnston Equipment. Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan.
Back in the gun here as we roll along. It's time to dig into our Albany preview here. We've got our guy Skylar Callahan in the fold as well. We'll get to our weekly picks before we get out of here. Jed, Albany rolling to town, 6 o'clock Saturday night. I don't know which side of the ball you want to start on, but just tell me that this is a team ripe for the picking and that we're in good shape.
Playoff team a year ago, and a good one, but a fundamentally different team than the team that went to the playoffs under head coach Greg Gattuso. Greg Gattuso, former D lineman, played at Penn State. You can kind of tell this team is coached by a former D lineman. In other words, the spots that you would expect to see solid technicians are the spots that you do see solid technicians. But again, this guy took over. He's bounced around, but on some big time staffs. He was at Maryland. He was at Pitt. So he's familiar with Mountaineer Field. He's familiar with Mountaineer football. But he took the Albany job in 2014. and has done a nice job there. In 2019, they won their first playoff game since they were a Division III program in the 70s. Again, they went on a run last year, finished 11-4. They pulled a major upset in the playoffs on the road at Idaho in a game that nobody expected them to win, and then got their doors blown off the next round. But that team from a year ago, they were completely raided by the portal. They do return 6 starters on the offense. That's probably where we'll start. Uh, what I see is it's an offense that the offensive line is going to have to make it go. They are battle tested there. They returned 4 starters from last year's playoff team. There's some talent. They are well coached, but they're going to try and push you around. They're going to try and take the air out of this game. That's what they're going to do coming into Mountaineer Field. And when you look at the weapons, well, they lost an all-league quarterback that was highly productive a year ago. In his place, they brought in a Wisconsin transfer, and it's not just any Wisconsin transfer. This kid's name's Miles Burkett. He was a 4-star signee when he signed with the Wisconsin Badgers a couple of years ago. He's the former Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Wisconsin. So we always like to talk about Nico being the Gatorade Player of the Year when he was in high school in Arizona. Well, that's exactly what this kid did in Wisconsin. So he was a stud. He was highly recruited. He was a coveted player. Things didn't work out at Wisconsin. He actually played up there a little bit. Ends up transferring in, so he's their guy now. He started last week in their opener against Long Island. They got a running back. As a matter of fact, a couple running backs back. The starter is Griffin Woodell. He was the Colonial Athletic Association's Rookie of the Year last year. He's a productive back. Their 1-2 punch is a pretty steady 1-2 punch. So the combination, you can kind of see this taking shape. A veteran offensive line, a 1-2 punch at the running back spot, a quarterback who is a cut above probably from a talent standpoint the rest of this offense. He's going to make some good decisions. It's going to be difficult to force him into mistakes. And then when you look on the perimeter, the guy that really jumps out, they got this slot / wideout named Seven McGee, and you'll see him wearing number 7. He started out at Oregon, ends up transferring to Jackson State. That was part of the Dion era, actually, before Dion took off to Colorado. But this kid looks like a guy who started out at Oregon. He jumps off the tape at you. He's shifty, he's twitchy. He makes some things happen. Had a big touchdown in their opener last week. So that's what you're kind of contending with from an offensive standpoint, with what West Virginia's defense will be tasked with. And one of the things I want to talk about as we work our way through this is, what do you want to see from West Virginia? Because this is certainly a game that is far more about us than it is about them. We always say that, but in the case of these FCS games, that's certainly the case. When you look at what Neal has done at West Virginia against FCS competition, Duquesne last year, 56-17, Towson 65-7, Long Island 65-0, Eastern Kentucky 56-10. Of course, the JMU, that was kind of a rock fight. Neal's first game here, that 20-13 game. He had similar success against these types of programs when he was at Troy. I mean, I could give you similar scores going back through what happened at Troy. But more recently, when you think back to the Duquesne game, sometimes these games are ugly early on as we're feeling each other out. And that one very much had that vibe. They were on the verge of tying the game right before the rain delay, like midway through the second quarter, before Hudson Clement broke loose and really kind of single-handedly changed the direction of this football game. But the big thing I took from that last year, this was a West Virginia team that ultimately would go on to lead the Big 12 in sacks, right? Well, they showed flashes of that against Duquesne by overwhelming the Duquesne offense with 14 tackles for loss. We won the line of scrimmage. We held Duquesne to 3 yards rushing. So at the point of attack, we were as dominant as you hope against an overmatched opponent like this we would be. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to see with West Virginia against this particular Albany offense. Yes, Albany has weapons. Yes, they're going to try and shrink the game. I would argue their offensive line is better than what Duquesne's was a year ago. That's going to be the stiffest challenge this West Virginia defense faces on Saturday night. But I do want to see us control things and dictate the terms right there at the point of attack and be disruptive. And as we wind things down, we're going to look at the other side of the ball as well. And I'll tell you some numbers I want to see. But I'm going to toss it over and turn the wheel to you guys after my general thoughts on the Albany Great Danes offense there.
What you got, Skyler? Welcome to the fold here.
Yeah, I mean they do have a nice little 1-2 punch in the backfield. You already talked about Waddell. I believe this is how you say his name. Fasale Aiden is their other guy. He had 459 yards rushing last year, a couple of touchdowns. So they're going to run the ball. And like you said, they're going to want to shrink this game as much as possible. That's how these FCS teams hang in these games. And when you have a veteran O line, or at least a talented O line like they have, even though they're a little undersized, they're going to be able to do that. They ran for over 121 yards a game last year, and much of that returning production up front is back. And last week, we really didn't see the front seven do a whole lot against Penn State. Now, I don't think they played nearly as bad as probably the numbers indicated, and I think Neil kind of said that earlier as well, but it just felt like they weren't getting into the backfield enough in the run game. They weren't winning those one-on-ones. They weren't generating pressure on Drew Aller. This is a game where you got to do it. You got to clean those things up now before you go up to Pitt next weekend, because you're going to have to get pressure on them, because they're another team that's going to want to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. You need to force them to throw it. This is the week to really get ready for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And really just getting back to all three phases. Let's knock it out of the park. Let's get this thing over by halftime and let the young bucks get some PT. You know what I mean? That's really where we kind of need to get. There a lot of mistakes need corrected. We need to jump the intensity up, way more this week. This has to be a sweep up game and kind of just go from there. So I just want to see a whole different brand. I want to see what we're really supposed to look like this season. And that's what I'm looking for against Albany next week.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Big O. I'm with you. I want to see them come out with some energy, some enthusiasm, put some of that feel bad from last weekend behind them rather quickly and not let that linger around. I think that's well said. A big thank you to our guy JR and our friends at Toothman Ford for being a presenting sponsor of In the Gun, because we all know cars cost less in Grafton. Jet.
Yeah, the last comment I'll make about the offense, and Skylar, you just kind of hit on it. It's funny when you think that West Virginia only managed 2 tackles for loss against Penn State's offense, and yet we still found a way to navigate towards so many third and longs. So that part of the heavy lift was done. You want to replicate that part of it. You want to force Albany into those third and longs, except the fundamental difference, you obviously want to finish the job. Keep contained, have gap integrity, pressure them, force some bad decisions. So let's switch sides and go to the Albany defense. And guys, this is where they really took some major hits. They've lost as many, depending on where you look at it or how you consider it, at least 10 starters, maybe even 11, depending on how you would define starter. So what they did was they reached into the portal themselves, and they brought in some candidates that are potential playmakers. And I do think they're kind of athletic at corner. They base what they do out of a 4-down set, a 4-down front, and they're going to try and play some quarters behind it and match things off of that. And they have some talent at corner, not a lot of size at corner. So, in other words, when I think quarters, what I'm thinking is if you start to effectively run the football, you're going to engage the curiosity of those safeties, just the very nature of that defense. When you think of it, just think of it like this: 4 deep defenders, each with the responsibility of 1/4 of the field. The biggest difference being those safeties in the middle can also be triggered downhill into run fits, depending on what the defensive call might be, what the offense looks like. So if you start to effectively run the football, you can trigger those safeties downhill, and that's what sets the table for big plays on the back end in those middle quarters in the center of the field. So that's what I want to see play out. That's where the big play opportunities can be found. And when you're attacking a quarters team, so I want us to see us control the line of scrimmage. This last year was a wildly disruptive defensive line. Last year's defensive line that paced the way to that 11-win playoff team, they led the conference with 50 sacks. All those cats are gone. This is a whole different animal. This is a whole different animal. And guys, last week they held on at home to beat Long Island 27-21. But what struck me about that, they entered that game as a 23.5-point favorite. And part of it was, I think they missed this dominant defensive line that carried the water for them so much. in that playoff run last year. So I think our offensive line, which obviously had some question marks last week, whether you want to talk about Wyatt Milam not being able to play in the second half, whether you want to talk about the lack of push, you can say a lot about the job we managed to do with those two NFL edge rushers that weren't very productive at all for Penn State, but at the cost of what? Because we didn't do a whole lot outside of that. So here's where we start framing some numbers. Again, don't be alarmed if these things kind of go sideways for a quarter and a half. That's kind of the nature of these games sometimes. As long as you separate at the appropriate time, and as long as you create the type of game that your twos and threes can rep the way you want, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter if it's the score at the end of the first quarter, the score at halftime, or the score midway through the third. As long as you take care of business in a timely fashion when the opportunity presents itself. Last year against Duquesne, it was halfway through the second quarter when we exploded and blew the game wide open. It was 35-10 at halftime after that long weather delay, sitting there at 14-10. So here's what I want. I want to see Garrett Green complete 60+% of his passes. Here's some numbers for you. I want to see Garrett Green average at least 10 yards per attempt. That's a chunky number. First and foremost, any game you average 10 yards per attempt, you're a lot to handle offensively. You're tough to beat. I want to see West Virginia's ground game average over 6 yards per carry as a team. On the defensive side, I want to see West Virginia's defense dominate on transition downs. In other words, third and fourth down, I want to see Albany somewhere in the low 30%. That's what I want to see. Because when you look at what we've done to this type of competition in recent years, third down alone. Last year, 31%. Year before that, 21, 15, 9. So we've done a pretty good job of shuffling these types of offenses off the field. I want to see it happen again. But most importantly, perhaps most importantly, this has been a turnover-starved, not team, a turnover-starved program. Last year, West Virginia forced 16 turnovers. The good news, that was the most since Neil Brown got to town. Okay. The bad news is it's still ranked in the middle of the Big 12. So in the last 4 games we played against FCS teams, we forced 2 turnovers, 1, 1, and 1. I want to see 3. That's what I want to see. So I want to see a productive day by Garrett. I want to see 10 yards per attempt and 60+ complete. That means you're making the most of the short routes plus pushing the football vertical. I want to see the run game humming at 6+ yards per carry. I want to see the defense getting them off the field on third and fourth down. And I want to see 3 turnovers. I don't even care what the score is. If you do those things that I just said, the score will more than take care of itself. This was a game, the FCS game last year against Duquesne. Nico played 43 snaps against Duquesne last year. That's what I'm hoping for. The type of game where Nico's in for 30 or 40 snaps, whatever the case might be. I'd like to see those 2 newbies at running back getting a lot of reps in the second half. This is the type of game that I want to see. We have what we feel is a solid 2 deep on the offensive line. I want the entire number 2 unit playing extensively in the second half on the offensive line. Same thing on the defensive side. We're going to have some opportunities for some young players if we handle our business to get in there and see, in fact, what they can do. And guys, on that defensive front, if 1 or 2 or more of these guys show a flash of what they can do, they might just stick around and be part of that rotation, because against Penn State, we truly only rotated 6 guys in consistently. Don't be surprised if one of these freshmen sneaks in there as number 7 if they show enough in a game like this. But those are the types of things, and you can talk about special teams opportunities, all that. I'll take that. A kick return, a blocked punt, whatever the case might be. Just don't lose special teams. If you can make a play and win it, all the better. But by and large, in a game like this, which you hope to be a get-right game, those are the types of things that I am looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit it right there on the head with, you can get another guy that can play, whether it's defensive line in the secondary, linebacker. I mean, this was the game last year that we found out about Hudson Clement, right? I mean, he bursted out into this really good quality receiver, and he ended up providing a lot of depth for that receiving core last year at a time they really needed it too. So who's going to be that player this year? Is it going to be a walk-on? Probably not. But there's an Elijah Kinsler out there. There's a Nate Gabriel out there on the defensive line that could definitely make a move this week. And there's some guys in that receiving room. Day Farmer, who's very talented. Could we see more of him? You talk about the 2 running backs. I mean, this is a great opportunity. And to add this on top of the Albany defense too, by my count at least. Now I don't know, I'm not great at math. I got John Marshall education here, so don't hold that against me. But I've got 15 of their top 15 tacklers from last year are no longer on this team. That's a lot of tackles.
I didn't count it, Skylar, but I read 13. So you're probably right.
Yeah, between that 13 15 range, and there was a lot of dudes that had double-digit tackles for losses. One of them, Elijah Hills, was somebody that West Virginia was going after in the portal this past offseason. He ended up going to Wisconsin. So there should be a distinct advantage in the trenches. And I just got to throw this out there too, right? You know Pitt's playing this week, Cincinnati. So this is a really good chance for you to get your work in, like Owen said, get a comfortable lead. Don't let it be entertaining in the second half. Tell Garrett to go grab a ball cap and a towel and go sit there and watch the rest of the second half while Pitt's trying to struggle it out against Cincinnati.
Just like
last year. If you find answers, right? If you find answers, like for instance, I want to do this in a half or 2.5 quarters. Another thing that I want an answer to, Pitt's sitting there after last week, Kent State or otherwise, feeling good about themselves offensively. New young coordinator, new quarterback, transfer from Alabama. That kid's a pretty good player. They got a couple pretty good receivers. We'll find out more about them about Cincinnati. But this is a West Virginia defense, guys, that last year against Penn State, Owen, we managed 9 quarterback hurries and 7 quarterback hits last year against Drew Aller. But on Saturday, only 5 hurries, no quarterback hits. You better figure that piece of it out now before you go to Acrisure and face this new Pitt defense. So those are the types of things. I agree, Skylar. You want to have business taken care of and be drinking Gatorade by the fourth quarter, but at the same time, let's along the way find some answers to some of these critical pieces that we're going to need, not just marching north to Pittsburgh, but even after that.
Jed, and I see your point. I get what you're saying, but if we take care of business, that's going to happen, when it needs to happen. I mean, we should be able to rush the quarterback. We should be able to exchange the line of scrimmage in our favor. We should be able to push the ball downfield. We should be able, obviously that's what we should be able to do. But without the intensity of what quote unquote you had said, hey, Neil has put a more physical aspect on this training camp. I don't know if I really saw it last week. I want to say, hey, look, let's throw that Penn State trash out the window. We're focusing on this game only. Let's go play some Mountaineer football and get it done. And like I said, I said by halftime, I know you want to hit your markers, and I understand that 100%. We want to look good. We want to make sure that what we're doing is working towards what we're trying to accomplish this season. And if we do that, hell, it'd be first quarter maybe. We never know, right? It could be that good. But I'm always a proponent of the guy who you got to play physical football. We looked a little scared last week. My opinion. I wasn't there. I was watching from TV. But they also looked a little bit bigger than us as well too. Big Ten football is Big Ten football for a reason. And it's been that way forever. But this week, like I said, hey, this is our tune-up now, right? We had our big game. Let's tune it up, right? And let's go into, this next week healthy. Hopefully we get out injury-free, ready to beat those stinking Panthers.
Another thank you to our friends at Fortis, those stinking Pitt Panthers. The complete opposite is our friends at Fortis and our buddy Rick Lewis for roof performance and financial security guaranteed. Financial certainty guaranteed. Pardon me. Make sure you visit fortis.us.com. Jedgar.
Yeah, I think that's well said by Owen. I mean, I think there were times that there was a certain element. I thought it was a physical football game, but it was a sloppy football game. And what happened was Penn State overcame that sloppiness and worked their way out of it. We kind of never did. I mean, there were licks laid by both sides. When I went back and studied the tape, it was a physical game, tackle to tackle. I mean, there were some ugly things happening that I didn't even notice in real time. It wasn't like we bowed down to them or we shrunk down. It's just we were sloppy. That said, I saw our DBs throwing their face into a bunch of piles to try and smack somebody around and make. In other words, I saw some promising things, but it was followed by some sloppiness. You can't be missing run fits and allow 40-yard runs. You can't be doing those types of things when a team like Penn State, I mean, they're jumping offside, they're holding, they're giving you personal fouls, they're giving you opportunities, and you're not making the most of them. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, whether we were physical or not doesn't matter. Penn State was way more physical, right, Owen? I mean, that was clear. They were the far more physical team, and the far less sloppy team. I mean, they had some jitters coming out of the gates, breaking a new center in and all that. But at the end of the day, we didn't make the most of the opportunities. They kind of started to slowly separate with all that talent and all that ability, and they settled in with the new play callers in all three phases of the game.
And Jed, I think that's what we wanted to just see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, did I think we were really going to win the game? I thought, Penn State was going to have to fumble the play. They were going to have to play sloppy for us to be able to get chances to get in there and have our opportunity. But I thought we were going to look more polished coming out of camp. That's just kind of what I thought was going to happen. But hey, like I said, this game it does matter. It didn't matter, whatever, let's just move on. We got our tune-up game now. Correct the mistakes. Like you said, let's play. Let's clean it up, tighten it up, right? Like wipe off the grease. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And really just get back to what we got to do this year. And that's, hey, step one is let's wipe Albany off the face of the planet, right? Get out of this week safe and healthy, and go demolish some Pink Panthers, Pitt Panthers, eat Schmidt Pitt. Hey, let's go, baby.
Panthers. And what you didn't expect, and you're exactly right, Owen. Penn State fumbles the snap early in the game.
Now wait,
you kind of expected us. Okay, it's fine if we go.
We doing this again?
Even if it's 4th and 6.
We did the Penn State. We did the Penn State recap. Why are we rehashing all of this again? I thought we burned the tape and we moved. This is the Albany
part of the conversation that we did burn it.
We did burn it. And Jen,
I'm sorry. Lord, go get the salt while you're at it. Just dump it right in my wound.
I didn't mean to re-spike some old feelings.
I was here for it.
You're exactly right. If it's 4th and 6 and you go up 3-0, it's do anything except snap the ball to your motion man, lose 19 yards and give it right back. Do anything except the next time on the field, fumble a hot snap.
Hey,
I hate you all.
Hold up, I want to tell you a story of where I was when I was watching this play. So I got dragged into this event at the Oakley situation, the Oakley Festival. It was at a little T-ball field or whatever, or sorry, midget league football field. There was literally nobody there.
He goes, sorry, and then says midget league.
These kids were all hyped up on pucker powder and like jumping on these water slides and stuff. So they were going nuts. And they had this back room that had the game on. I had just ordered like 5 hot dogs loaded, 5 nachos loaded, and 5 tacos in a bag. Okay. So I had a heaping amount of food for all these kids. And they're like, hey, man, hey, we knew you were going to be here, so we turned the game on in the back TV. So I peek my head in, and I'm like, Penn State had just fumbled, and I'm like, let's go, baby, let's go. Okay, next play, I'm like throwing my hat down, wiping my butt with it, because I'm like, please don't let this be this year, man. Please. Don't let this be the season, man.
I hate you all.
So, anyways, without that said, let's move on.
Wes, I'll make you laugh with this. This is my last Penn State story.
Good Lord.
A buddy of mine told me he left the broadcast of the radio, and during the weather delay, it was 2 hours. So Learfield had to fill it with something, right? So what we did was we put a previous Mountaineer broadcast on. And as soon as this guy started telling me this story, I was like, don't tell me this was an Orson Welles moment. He said, Jed, listen to what happened. Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, if you know where I'm going with this. So the guy leaves, and of course it's 20-6 at halftime. The weather delay kicks in, blah, blah, blah. He comes back in thinking the game is resumed. Meanwhile, it's an old broadcast. and he hears Tony on the play-by-play saying, West Virginia takes the lead. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he jumps up all excited. And on trots Casey Legg for the PAT. And he's like, wait a minute, Casey's in the stands at this game. He's like, how bad are things? You're pulling Casey out of the stands. And then he realized quickly, all right, this is an Orson Welles War of the Worlds moment. This is an old broadcast. But I was like, all right, that you lifted my spirits a little bit with that story. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, where are we? I don't know. I know I have to do this. Johnston Equipment, another thank you to our new friends at Johnston Equipment. Get 0% financing for up to 84 months with approved credit on select Coyote tractors in stock now at Johnston Equipment, Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. All right, are we done? Are we done now?
Get you one of them orange Coyotes.
You guys have got me so thrown off here. I mean, geez,
Wes wanting to jump into the last week's results. Wes isn't a big hurry to get into the last week's results.
Hey, I wouldn't be either.
Big hurry. Yeah, you're darn right. You darn right. I mean, you want to bring up Penn State? You want to bring up how bad I did in our last week's pick'em? I mean, you guys just want this to be a 7-hour episode to extend my agony.
I went through a 7-hour episode on Saturday. Okay.
I cut this one on half.
I already had one of those. Yeah, okay. Last week's picks. Once again, we're going to have to get back my buddy Will Gregory helping us out online so the fans can join in. I picked the passing offense to throw for the most yards in the Big 12. Owen picks the rushing offense. Wes picks the Big 12 scoring defense. And Skylar picks the Big 12 scoring offense. Last week, I picked Colorado to throw for the most yards in the Big 12 against North Dakota State. They threw for 445, and they did throw for the most yards of the 16 teams in the Big 12. So I get, for the first time ever, all 5 points, my first place 5. Owen, not far behind. Owen picked, after he settled down and figured out who was playing Lindenwood, one of those Kansas schools, he picked Kansas against the Lindenwood Lions to rush for the most yards. Almost hit it. Kansas, with new offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes, ran for 331 against Lindenwood. Number 1 in the Big 12. Kansas was number 2. Number 1 was UCF against New Hampshire, ran for 454. That gives Owen 4 points for his second place pick. Good job, Big O. Wes.
Thank you.
Ooh, we need the Price is Right. Wes, you picked your defense of the week to hold the opposition to the fewest points. Texas Tech.
Promptly
Texas
gave
Tech
up 50 points.
They held Abilene Christian to 51 points.
They held them to 51 points, baby. I mean,
the Fighting Tyron Bradleys, they held them to 51 points. That was the most given up. Utah pitched the shutout against Southern Utah.
I think he's got it mixed up.
It's honestly
hilarious. 4
hilarious.
teams held an opponent to 3 points. Texas Tech allowed the most.
I said the wrong. We had a technical hiccup on the last. I actually said Utah. It got.
So Wes gets his first 16th out of 16. He finished dead last. 0 points. Skylar picked the offense, or excuse me, the offense here. Okay, Skylar, you picked Kansas against those poor Lindenwood Lions. Kansas scored 48 points. That was good for a 5th place tie. Arizona scored the most in the Big 12, and he went over New Mexico 61. UCF number 2 against New Hampshire 57. Skylar, you finished 5th, so that's good for 1 point.
I'm on the board.
After 1 week, I better say this while I can. Jed 5, Owen 4, Skylar 1, Wes 0. I better say it while I can because it will change quickly. And now I'm hoping for a strike-shortened season. With NIL, anything's possible. So now we got to make this week's picks.
It ain't about how you start. It's about how you finish. And we're going to go in reverse order this time from worst to first. So that means I'll go first. Defense of the week, your WVU Mountaineers. Foot on their necks. All right. Suffocate these boys. No mercy. I'm picking WVU. Skylar, offense of the week. Who's going to score the most points?
I'm going to go and stick with the Mountaineers. I was going to go TCU because they got Long Island this week, and Long Island's very, very a bad team. But I think West Virginia makes the most sense. Jed's already talked about it with the amount of games that they've had against FCS teams. I think the average score under Neil Brown in these games is 52 point something to 9 point something. So I'm going with the Mountaineers.
Beer truck of the week
Beer
is West Virginia. I'm taking them.
Jed, clean sweep?
No, I agree with Owen, which is why I can't make a clean sweep. Okay. So I'm going to, hey, well, they're hot. I'm gonna stick with those fighting Buffaloes of Colorado. Now, here's what concerns me. Last year at home, they're facing Nebraska. Nebraska was pretty stout against the pass in Lincoln last year. Worries me a little bit, but I don't know that Colorado will be able to run the football in Nebraska, so I think they'll have to throw it. Last year, they did throw for 396 against the Cornhuskers in Boulder. This is a different matchup. This one worries me more, but I'm going to stick with Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffs to throw for the most yards once again in the Big 12.
Well, there we have it. This is a pretty jam-packed episode. We got all the McAfee Show stories from Big O. We got an Albany preview. We rehashed some Penn State pain for some reason. And there is your Big 12 pickup as well, too.
Wells in there. Our friend Mike Vest telling Orson Welles stories.
Good
friend of the show.
God bless us, every single one. That'll do it for this edition of ITG, but don't you go anywhere. We still got Phil Steele Friday coming before that ball is kicked off on Saturday, so plenty more to get to this week, but that will do it for this edition of ITG. For the producer / co-host / everything, Skylar Callahan, and the runaway beer truck, Big O, Owen Schmidt, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. I'm Wes Schuler. The one thing that we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, and we will talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.